today. You got me, Jody Mack, and his Birds 365. Yeah, every passing hour, the pain of the Super Bowl loss decreases about much. Not a whole hell of a lot, but it does get a little bit less. And before you know it, there will be transactions coming that'll let us sink our teeth into the Birds for 2023, which in most Vegas outlets are the third choice, the fourth choice. Some have San Francisco ahead of the Eagles. Everybody has Kansas City as the number one choice. Some have Buffalo ahead. Cincinnati and the Bengals are the Cincinnati Bengals and Eagles are on that same par. They're not the favorite to go back. Kansas City is, and then it's a bunch of teams that are grouped together, and the Eagles are certainly in that group. So they should have a shot again next year, but they've got a lot of offseason work to do, a bunch of free agents to get done. But as we just discussed with Jeff, Tone, they got to get the extension for Jalen Hurts done. And sure enough, I was dealing with it again last night. Got a call on WIP. Guy says, they can get Hurts done if they offer him 3 years, $120 million. No, they can't. He's not getting 3 years. You can give the benchmark other quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, 5-year deal. Who am I forgetting? Josh Allen, 6-year deal. Kyler Murray, who has not even come close to doing what Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' year this year overshadows anything that Kyler Murray's ever done in the National Football League. 5 years, $230 million. So if you think that you're going to get Jalen Hurts on the cheap, if he's going to do the Eagles a favor and give them a hometown discount, he's a good guy. I think he loves Philadelphia. He certainly puts that forth as a step. This is his chance to get paid. And why shouldn't he make as much, if not more, and I say more, than a guy like Kyler Murray? And if you're an Eagle fan, how can you expect him to settle for less? It's got to be a 5-year deal, right, Tone?
Yeah, it's a bit selfish, for some fans to think that he's just supposed to just play for pennies on the dollar. You know what I mean? Hey, he just loves Philly. He loves Philly cheesesteaks. He loves soft pretzels and water ice. He loves it. It's not realistic. At the end of the day, he's a contractor, and his services require a certain level of compensation, and his performance, the results, have elevated that level of compensation. You mentioned guys like Kyler Murray. You mentioned Deshaun Watson. I'm looking at Kyler Murray's contract. I'm not even really talking about the years, because I think the years, like you said, are going to be 5, something like that. But an average salary for Kyler Murray, $46.1 million. Russell Wilson, $48.5 million. Deshaun Watson, $46 million. Patrick Mahomes is making less than those guys with $45 million. They gave him a 10-year contract, half $500 million, but the way it's structured. Josh Allen, $43 million. Aaron Rodgers, $50.2 million. So I think, if I'm being completely honest with you, Jody, Jalen Hurts is going to get, at the bare minimum, he's going to get $49 million. Because, again, as you elevate your game, as you elevate your stock, as the results begin to, funnel out, Jalen Hurts has shown that he can play on an extremely high level. He can make every throw. I think that conversation needs to be put to bed. He can make every single throw. You saw in the Super Bowl, he can make any throw you need him to make at any given moment. And I think that's where the money is right there. What are the throws you can make, right? And I don't care how strong your arm is. No one's asking you to throw the ball 80 yards, 60 yards every play. That's not realistic, but the fact that he's able to make every throw efficiently, competently, and he's shown an ability to sustain drives, be reliable. He's a leader. He's a man's man. You know what I mean? Like, this team follows him wherever he goes. Why would you want to shortchange a guy like that? It doesn't really make too much sense to me. But again, I think that contract starts at $49 million. Joe Banner was on the Rich Eisen show, and he said that contract is probably going to be 51, 52, something around there. So look, I'm all for guys getting paid. I've never been mad at guys going to get their money. But what I will say is this: it's important to understand the dynamic of your success. Jalen Hurts improved his game, leaps and bounds, but also concurrently, the roster was improved beside him as well. So I think Jalen Hurts is smart enough to say, okay, I took my game to this level. The roster around me helped elevate me, and I also helped elevate them. I need to make sure I get mine while at the same time I'm able to keep us in contention. I don't want to gut us. So I'm not telling him to take a pay cut. I'm just simply
exactly what you told him. Wait, you
no,
can't have it both ways here, Joe. I'm going to get mine,
I knew you were going to do it.
But we've got to leave something for everybody else. No,
I knew you were going to do it, Jody.
$50 million, he's not leaving anything for anybody else.
So hear me out on this. Hear me out on this. I never encourage guys to take less than what they deserve. Never. All I say is be mindful. Be mindful of what your contract does. Be mindful. Take what you want. I'm never going to judge you. Just be mindful. That's all. And I think Jalen Hurts is a smart enough guy that he's mindful.
Mindful is nice. The only thing that matters is your actions. And he's got to take care of himself first. And
absolutely.
He's got to be mindful. I'm mindful of it, Howie. It's on you. That's how the conversation has to go. It's not his job to keep everybody else's cap number in place. That's on Howie.
And to your point, Jody, to your point, not to interrupt, but to your point, the Chiefs gave Patrick Mahomes a lot of money, and they still got where they were because they drafted well and they developed players, and they were able to put those guys in positions to succeed. Coaches elevated those players. So again, like you said, it's up to Howie Roseman to bring in a nice new crop of talent to put with Jalen Hurts and the rest of those guys, but also it's up to the coaching staff to help scheme and coach those guys up. You know what I mean? And look, the bottom line is, like you said, man, like Jalen Hurts deserves to get his money. And this in no shape, way, or form should he be shortchanged by that because of his style of play, because of the way he plays the position. It doesn't matter. He's shown you an ability to get you to a Super Bowl and play good enough to win the game. You got to pay him.
Here's the one fly in the ointment, and the Hurts devotees aren't going to like this. And I'm actually one of them, but I'm also a realistic guy who can look through it objectively rather than eagle-colored glasses. Jalen Hurts was phenomenal this year. He's second best player in the National Football League. Only Mahomes was better. I think he was actually the best quarterback on the field in the Super Bowl, even though Mahomes won the MVP. He outplayed him for my money. So he needs to get paid. He deserves to get paid. He's going to get paid. But he does play the game a specific way. And if you're taking advantage of Jalen Hurts' skill set and the Super Bowl, another prime example, most rushing yards ever by a quarterback in the Super Bowl at 70. He now owns that record after one shot at it. How much are you guessing? And no one can know for sure. None of us have a crystal ball. But how much are you factoring in? All right, Jalen is going to be injured X amount of games because we're going to put him at risk, because we want to take advantage of a skill that he has that this side of Lamar Jackson, nobody else in the National Football League has. And oh, by the way, isn't Lamar a shining example of what can happen when you get a quarterback who runs as much as he does? Lamar has been injured as much as he has. And that just ends your season. When Lamar Jackson goes down, the Ravens season over. If he's not playing in the playoffs, over. Well, the Eagles were lucky in that Jalen Hurts got hurt this year, only missed 2 games, was able to come back for a third and be healthy enough. Not 100%, but healthy enough in the postseason. You can get away with that when he's making $2 million. When he's making $50 million and, oh, shoot, Jalen's going to be out for 5 weeks. Your season's over. You're screwed. So is that anything that the Eagles have to be able to negotiate around? Will Jalen accept that, hey, listen, we want to pay you the same as every other quarterback in the league, but you're a guy who's probably going to have injury issues in your career, and we need to protect ourselves. Is that going to wash it all in a negotiation between Hurts and Howie Roseman?
It's definitely going to come up. But I also think it's how you structure the contract, right? I think if they put enough, I guess the term you'll use is off ramps, but it's always how you structure the contract, and ultimately you got to know what you're paying for. At the end of the day, you have to understand what you're paying for, and you have to understand why a certain player is successful. I think Jalen Hurts is actually better than Lamar Jackson. I think he's a better thrower. I think he's a more I think he's a smarter runner. I don't see Jalen Hurts taking the same kind of hits as Lamar Jackson. But again, we got to be mindful. Jalen Hurts ran the ball more than he did last season. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is he ran that ball more, and he took more hits just by the math. So when you pay him, you have to keep in mind, this is your style of play, Jalen. This is what you do. Now, are you going to begin to run less and throw more? We don't want to change your game. We don't want to change what makes you great. But I definitely expect Jalen Hurts' game to continue to round itself out in the passing game. And as he gets older, I think he'll begin to run a bit less and less and less, and just to be a little bit more judicious with his rush attempts. Again, they ran him more this year than they did last year. That was something I didn't expect to happen, but it did. So we're going to really, it's really one of those conversations that's so up in the air. I almost don't really have an answer for you, Jody. I just think it's one of those things that you have to structure this contract, whereas though he gets what he wants, you get what you want, and everybody, for the most part, is protected.
I will debate with you a little bit that he's a smarter runner than Lamar Jackson. He's a tougher runner than Lamar Jackson. He's stronger than Lamar Jackson. I've said this a couple times here and elsewhere. The lament after the loss that they didn't have that good straight ahead runner, that between the tackles runner, that guy who's going to move the pile like they did in 2017 with LeGarrette Blount and J.J. Oh, yeah, they do. It's just his name's Jalen Hurts. He's the quarterback. They've got a great between the tackles, move the pile rusher. He just happens to be the QB on this team. So the lamenting, I think, is misplaced. But he does. He puts his body at risk, and he's going to because he's that tough of a guy. He's that strong and well-built enough of a guy, and he's got that mindset. So I don't know what you can say. He's a smarter runner than Lamar.
So can I ask? So let me ask you this, Jody. To your point, right? About the Eagles using Jalen in those short yardage, situations as their power back to, move the line forward, so on and so forth. Do you think this Eagles coaching staff would be even willing to run less designed runs for him and actually get a running back that does what you want Jalen Hurts to do, operate in those short yardage situations? They had Trey Sermon, but they didn't want to really give him any time. I don't know if he didn't. I don't know if he didn't show them enough. I don't know, but they felt like Trey Sermon wasn't a guy that needed to get that many snaps. So, do you see them making a thought to say, okay, we need to bring in a power back so we can run our quarterback just a bit less?
It's a very legitimate question. They're going to redo their entire running back room. I don't think Miles is going to be back. Who knows about Boston Scott? Trey Sermon may or may not be here. The only given is going to be Kenny Gainwell, and we don't even know how they're going to plan on using. Is he going to be their lead back? Is he going to stay in the role, maybe expand a little bit of what he was in this year? Oh, that's wide open for not only debate, but to be determined by the Eagles, depending on how they want to run their offense. And you're suggesting, it's a distinct possibility that they do try and get a specific running back who goes more between the tackles just because they can take that away from Jalen Hurts and put him at risk less going forward. He's Tone DeShields in for Johnny Mac. I'm Jody McDonald. We had a GM in hour number 1. We got a GM in hour number 2. That's not a general manager. It was Jeff Mosher in hour number 1. Coming up next is longtime NFL writer and author Gary Myers going to jump in with us. We'll talk both about the Super Bowl, the Eagles, and a little Hall of Fame, since Gary is one of the selectors as well. We got Gary Myers joining us next year on Birds 360.